That figure on the Starbucks logo, the one you've seen thousands of times without really looking. Most people assume she's a mermaid. Look closer. She has two tails. She's holding them apart, displaying herself. In the original 1971 design, before corporate sanitization, you could see her bare breasts and the full spread of her serpentine lower half. She's not a mermaid, she's a Melusine, a creature from French medieval legend. Half woman, half serpent. A monster who married a nobleman, bore him 10 children, most of them deformed, built him an empire, and then transformed into a dragon and flew away screaming when he discovered what she really was. And now she sells coffee to 3 billion customers a year. How does a medieval monster become a global brand? The answer takes us through 6 centuries of propaganda, political manipulation, and one of history's most successful reputation laundering operations. Because Melusine wasn't folklore, she was invented, commissioned, and paid for by a duke who needed a founding myth for a failing dynasty. This is the story of how a noble family turned their darkest rumors into their greatest asset. Before we meet the serpent, if you believe the stories that power tries to bury deserve to be uncovered, if you want to understand how the powerful have always manufactured their own myths, subscribe to Late Mysteries. Tonight, we're going to watch a dynasty build its own monster. Every lie they told, every secret they hid, every scream that echoed from the towers for 300 years. Welcome to Late Mysteries. For 300 years, people reported hearing Melusine, not seeing her, hearing her. A terrible shriek that echoed from the towers of Lusignan Castle in western France. Guards reported it. Servants fled from it. Nobles recorded it in their personal letters as simple fact. The cry always meant the same thing. Someone important was about to die. The accounts are remarkably consistent. A sound like a woman wailing, but wrong somehow. Too loud, too long. Emanating from stones and empty air rather than any human throat. It came at night, usually. It came without warning. And within days of hearing it, someone in the Lusignan bloodline would be dead. In 1574, Catherine de' Medici, Queen Mother of France, one of the most powerful women in Europe, visited the ruins of Lusignan Castle. By then, the fortress had been partially demolished on royal orders, its towers torn down to prevent it from being used as a stronghold in the religious wars tearing France apart. But the foundations remained. The stories remained. According to contemporary accounts, Catherine heard the scream herself. The people that Melusine was crying for were the Lusignans, one of the most improbable dynasties in European history. They started as minor nobles in a backwater French province called Poitou. Not kings, not even particularly important counts. Just another family with a small castle and modest ambitions in a region most people couldn't find on a map. Within 2 centuries, they ruled Jerusalem. They ruled Cyprus. They ruled the Armenian kingdom of Cilicia. They married into every major royal house in Europe, the Plantagenets of England, the Capetians of France, and the Holy Roman Emperors. They punched so far above their weight that people started to wonder how, started to whisper, started to suggest that maybe the Lusignans had made a deal with something that wasn't quite human. Those whispers followed the family for generations. They couldn't outrun them. They couldn't disprove them. The more successful they became, the more people believed something unnatural was involved. By the late 1300s, the whispers had become a serious problem, and the Lusignans decided to do something about it. In 1393, a writer named Jean d'Arras received a commission from one of the richest men in France. Jean, Duke of Berry, was a prince of the blood son of one king, brother of another, uncle to a third. He was also a legendary patron of the arts, the man who commissioned the famous Tres Riches Illuminated manuscript, one of the most beautiful books ever made. He collected beautiful things. He employed the best artists and writers money could buy, and he had married a Lusignan princess. The Duke looked at the rumors destroying his wife's family legacy. He looked at the accusations of demonic ancestry that had followed the Lusignans for 200 years. He looked at a dynasty that was fading, losing its kingdoms, watching its reputation crumble, and he hired Jean d'Arras to fix it. The writer's job was simple: create an origin story. Give the Lusignans an ancestor they could be proud of. Transform the whispers of demonic blood into something else entirely. What Jean d'Arras created was Melusine. But Jean d'Arras didn't invent her from nothing. He took something that already existed, something people in that region had been whispering about for centuries, and he gave it shape, he gave it a name, he gave it a purpose. The raw material was already there, buried in local legend and older stories that stretched back before Christianity ever reached France. Stories about women who weren't entirely human. Stories about bargains made at ancient springs. Stories about what happens when a mortal man sees something he was never supposed to see. Jean d'Arras took those fragments and forged them into a weapon, a piece of propaganda so effective that it outlived the family it was meant to serve by half a millennium. To understand what he was working with, we need to go back to the fountain where it all began. There's a spring in Poitou in western France called the Fontaine de Soif, the Fountain of Thirst. It still exists. You can visit it today. The water is cold and clear, rising from limestone bedrock and pooling in a basin surrounded by ancient trees. It's quiet there. The kind of place where you can imagine the veil between worlds wearing thin. For as long as anyone can remember, long before Jean d'Arras, long before the Lusignans, long before Christianity, the local people have always believed it was something else. Before Christianity arrived in Gaul, the Celtic peoples who lived here organized their spiritual world around water. Springs were sacred. Rivers were goddesses. Pools and wells were places where you could communicate with powers that existed outside normal reality. The boundary between the human world and the other world grew thin at these locations. Thin enough that things could cross over. Water spirits populated every stream and pond. Some were benevolent, many were dangerous. All of them operated by rules that humans didn't fully understand, and some of them took human lovers. The stories follow a consistent pattern. A man encounters a supernatural woman at a body of water. She's impossibly beautiful. She offers him something he desperately wants: wealth, power, children, love. In exchange, she asks for one thing: a promise, a taboo, a rule he must never break. Don't look at me at certain times. Don't ask where I go. Don't speak my true name. Don't follow me when I leave. The man agrees. Why wouldn't he? She's offering everything. For a while, the bargain works. The man gets what he was promised. The supernatural wife seems content. Children are born. Wealth accumulates. Life is good. Then the man breaks the rule. He always breaks the rule. This pattern isn't unique to France. It exists everywhere humans tell stories. In ancient Rome, there's Cupid and Psyche. The god of love takes a mortal bride, but forbids her from seeing his face. She lights a lamp while he sleeps. A drop of hot oil falls on his skin. He wakes, sees her betrayal, and vanishes. In Greek mythology, there's Orpheus and Eurydice. He's allowed to lead his dead wife out of the underworld on one condition: don't look back. He looks back. She's lost forever. In Scottish folklore, there are the Selkie tales. A man finds a seal woman's skin while she's bathing in human form. He hides it. She becomes his wife, bears his children, and makes him happy for years. Then she finds the skin. She returns to the sea. She never comes back. In Japanese tradition, there's the tale of Urashima Taro, who marries a princess of the sea and is forbidden from opening a certain box. He opens it. 300 years catch up with him in an instant. The supernatural wife, the mortal husband, the forbidden knowledge, the inevitable betrayal. The shape of the story is so consistent across cultures and centuries that it must be touching something fundamental about human experience. Jean d'Arras didn't invent this pattern. He inherited it from thousands of years of human storytelling. But he did something new with it. In every older version of this story, the supernatural wife is a victim. She's the one who loses everything when the taboo is broken. The focus is on her tragedy. Jean Dara shifted the focus. In his version, the supernatural wife isn't just a beautiful victim. She's a builder, a founder, a creator of dynasties. Before she's discovered, before she's forced to flee, she constructs an empire. Melusine isn't the tragedy at the center of the story. She's the explanation for everything that comes after. Her sons will conquer kingdoms. Her castles will stand for centuries. Her bloodline will produce kings and queens across 3 continents. The monster becomes the mother of nations. That's not folklore. That's propaganda. And it was exactly what the Lusignans needed. The story begins with a murder. A young nobleman named Raymondin is out hunting in the forest with his uncle, the Count of Poitiers. They're tracking a boar, a massive, dangerous animal that's been terrorizing the local villages. The hunt has gone on for hours. They've become separated from the rest of their party. Night is falling. Then they see it. The boar, enormous and bristling. The Count raises his spear. The boar charges. In the chaos of the attack, Raymondin's spear finds the wrong target. The blade meant for the boar plunges into his uncle's chest. The Count of Poitiers, one of the most powerful lords in France, dies in Raymondin's arms. We're told it was an accident. Maybe it was. But Jean Dara plants enough ambiguity that we're never quite sure. Was it really an accident? Or did some dark impulse guide his hand? What matters is what happens next. Raymondin flees into the forest, terrified. He rides through the darkness until his horse refuses to go any farther. He's reached a fountain. It's midnight, and there, at the edge of the spring, 3 women are bathing. Raymondin freezes. One of them, the most beautiful, steps toward him. She speaks his name. She knows who he is. She knows what he's done. She knows he's a dead man if he returns to civilization, and she offers him a deal. "Marry me," she says. "Swear that you will never try to see me on Saturdays. In exchange, I will make you more powerful than you have ever dreamed." Raymondin, who has no other options, agrees. The woman's name is Melusine. The next morning, Raymondin returns to the castle. He tells a carefully constructed story about the Count's death. No one questions him. Within weeks, he's acquired his uncle's lands. Within months, he's married Melusine in a ceremony attended by nobles from across France. And then the real transformation begins. Melusine doesn't just marry Raymondin, she rebuilds him. Castles appear overnight, literally overnight. Fortresses that should take decades to construct materialize between sunset and sunrise. Raymondin goes to bed with an empty plot of land and wakes up to towers and walls and battlements. These weren't fictional castles. Every fortress Jean Dara mentioned was real. By attributing their construction to Melusine, Jean Dara was claiming the entire built landscape of Poitou as evidence of the Lusignan fairy heritage. And she bears Raymondin 10 sons. The sons are not normal. Urien, the firstborn, has 1 red eye and 1 green eye. Odin has ears so large they seem almost wing-like. Goyon has 1 eye set higher than the other. Antoine has a lion's claw growing from his cheek. Renaud has a single eye in the center of his forehead. Geoffroy has an enormous boar's tusk jutting from his jaw. Fremont is covered in fur from head to toe. Horrible, who has 3 eyes arranged in a vertical line down his face. 8 sons. 8 monsters. Medieval people recognized that certain features ran in families. They just explained it differently. The Lusignans did have distinctive features, unusual eyes, prominent jaws. Jean Dara's took those features and gave them a mythological explanation. The Lusignan sons aren't deformed. They're marked by destiny. The deformities aren't curses. They're prophecies written in flesh. For years, the arrangement works. Raymondine gets richer. Melusine gets her family. Every Saturday, Melusine withdraws to her private chamber. The door locks. Raymondine has kept his promise faithfully until his brother shows up. The brother starts to wonder. Where does Melusine go every Saturday, he asks. What kind of woman builds castles overnight and bears children with tusks and claws? The implication hangs in the air. The doubt starts small, but trust, once questioned, is hard to rebuild. One Saturday, Raymondine makes a decision. He takes his sword and goes to the wall of Melusine's private chamber. He uses the point of the blade to bore a hole through the stone, and he looks through. She's in a bath. From the waist up, she's the woman he married. From the waist down, she's something else. A serpent's tail, massive, coiling, covered in scales. It fills the tub, spilling over the edges. Raymondine stumbles backward. He doesn't tell anyone what he saw. For months, perhaps years, he knows what she is. He knows the woman sleeping beside him transforms into a serpent every Saturday. And he stays. The scene doesn't destroy them. So what does? One of their sons, Geoffroy of the Great Tooth, does something unforgivable. He's violent and temperamental. He attacks the Abbey of Melusine and burns it to the ground with everyone inside, including his own brother, Fromont. When Raymondine hears the news, something in him breaks. He turns on Melusine in the great hall, in front of courtiers and servants, and screams, "Away, odious serpent! You have contaminated my noble race. None of this would have happened without your false enchantments." Serpent. He says it in public. The word hangs in the air. Melusine doesn't argue. She doesn't weep. She walks to the window. And as the court watches, her body begins to change. The serpent's tail emerges first. Then wings unfold from her back, leathery and vast. She grows larger, more terrible. She's no longer a woman with a serpent's tail. She's a dragon. She flies through the window, circling the castle 3 times, screaming in a voice that doesn't sound human. Then she's gone. Into the clouds. Into legend. But she doesn't stay gone entirely. The nurses who tend to her youngest children begin reporting nocturnal visitations. They see a shape bending over the cradles. Someone has been nursing them in the night. Melusine, transformed and exiled, still comes back in the darkness to feed her children. And for the next 300 years, people would hear her coming back. Whenever a member of the Lusignan bloodline was about to die, witnesses report a sound that echoes from the stones themselves. A wail. A shriek. A mother's grief transformed into something terrible. The legend says that Melusine can see the fate of all her descendants, and she mourns them. Every single one. This isn't a fairy tale comfort. It's a haunting. But think about what this does for the Lusignans as a political matter. Every other noble family in Europe has ancestors who were just people. The Lusignans have something else. Their family's losses are acknowledged by a power beyond the mortal world. Their sorrows have cosmic significance. The Lusignans didn't commission Jean d'Arras because they were proud. They commissioned him because they were desperate. By 1393, the family's fortunes had collapsed. The last Lusignan king of Armenia had died in exile. The Cyprus branch was unstable. The French branches were losing influence. Jean d'Arras was hired to take the rumors that were destroying them and transform them. The whispers said they were descended from a demon. Jean d'Arras said, yes, they're descended from something inhuman, but it's a fairy, a spirit of power and fertility. To understand how improbable their rise was, we need to go back to a battlefield in the Holy Land. In 1186, a Lusignan knight named Guy married Sibylla, Queen of Jerusalem. He became king through luck and timing. His reign was a disaster. In 1187, he led his army to annihilation at the Horns of Hattin and lost Jerusalem. Guy de Lusignan became a byword for failure. And yet, he bought Cyprus. For the next 300 years, they ruled Cyprus, and eventually Armenia too. Success on this scale attracted suspicion. People said the Lusignans had help. After Jean Dara, a poet named Coudret produced a second version of the story. This wasn't organic folklore. This was a coordinated media campaign. Coudret added something crucial: salvation. He emphasized Melusine's Christian virtues to let the Lusignans claim supernatural heritage without claiming damnation. Then came the printing press. In 1456, a German version was produced. Melusine became one of the first bestsellers of the print age. The book was reprinted constantly. By 1500, everyone in Europe knew the story. Melusine had escaped the control of the family that invented her. She became a symbol. For nobles, she was proof of aristocratic power. For merchants, she was an image of aspiration. The specific Lusignan context faded. By 1500, there were no more Lusignans. The family had vanished from history. But Melusine was everywhere. She had become immortal through ink and paper. In 1971, 3 businessmen in Seattle were looking for a logo for their new coffee company. They found a 16th century Norse woodcut of a twin-tailed Melusine. They probably didn't know about the Lusignans. They just liked the image. The original 1971 Starbucks logo is startling. The Melusine is fully visible, her breasts are bare, and her twin tails are spread wide. It looks like something you might find in an alchemist's manual. As the company grew, the logo was cleaned up. The Melusine's breasts were covered. In 1992, the frame tightened to her waist. In 2011, the company name disappeared. Now, it's just the face and a hint of the body. You can barely tell she has tails at all. They kept her, they just hid what she was. Melusine's entire story is about hiding your true nature. Now she appears on billions of cups, and almost no one knows what they're looking at. Her serpent's tail has been cropped out of frame, hidden from view. She's still keeping her Saturday secret. Let's count the lies. The Lusignans pretended they were descended from a fairy. Jean Daha pretended he was recording ancient folklore. Starbucks pretends the figure on their cups is just a friendly mermaid. Layer upon layer of fiction. But here's what's not a lie: the fear that made Melusine necessary. Every family has secrets. The Lusignans looked at theirs and made them sacred. And then there's the other truth. Everyone has a Saturday self. Everyone has a version they don't let anyone see. Melusine's tragedy isn't that she's a monster. It's that she trusted someone enough to ask for privacy, and he couldn't give it to her. The seeing didn't destroy them. The speaking did. Raymondin lost her because he betrayed her secret. The Fontaine de Soif still exists. The water is cold. 600 years later, Melusine is still hiding. Only this time, she's on your coffee cup. The Lusignans are dust. Their kingdoms are gone. But Melusine endures, because that's what stories do. They outlast the people who tell them. The real magic is that she found a way to live forever, even if she had to hide to do it.